Thank you. And thank you, Vlad, for inviting me here. The last time I was in Sofia was in 2016. I had just stepped up as a curator of the DAO because Gavin Wood had stepped down. And 2 days later, the DAO was hacked. And I onboarded the flight, arrived in Sofia, and instead all my agenda plans fell short. I met Vlad in a Bitcoin cafe. But basically, the whole time I was in Sofia in 2016, we were in online chats, the curators, who had no powers, because it was supposed to be super decentralized, and we were trying to figure out what we can do in the absence of any rights we had as curators. And 9 years later, here we are again in Sofia. A lot has happened in the DAO space, and recently people are saying DAOs are dead. I don't think DAOs are dead per se, the idea, but I think the tokens, these protocol tokens of the DAOs were flawed. They were not sustainable, and I'm here today to present a design thinking framework of how to design resilient token systems, whether it's for simple asset tokens or more complex DAO or protocol tokens. So I started BlockchainHub in Berlin in 2015, moved on to create the Research Institute for Cryptoeconomics now, and in the pandemic I started Token Kitchen in Portugal. Over the years I wrote the book Token Economy. It was just released in the 3rd edition. And in this 3rd edition, I worked on this design thinking framework, which I'm presenting today. It's also an online tool. And in the book, I use the tool. It can be used to analyze token systems, to make investment decisions, but it can also be used to create your own token system. You don't have to read the book, though I think it would give great background knowledge, especially the analysis of the use cases. There's also a free online tool that you can download on the website, the Token Kitchen site, and it's basically an Excel file that you can download and that will help you analyze or create token systems. This tool is qualitative, it's not quantitative. What does it mean? One of the downfalls of, I think, crypto, especially with DAOs and protocol tokens, was that people jump to the quantitative questions, like which formula to use. Do we need a bonding curve? What type of bonding curve? Quadratic voting? How many tokens to issue? These are important questions, but they are not the first questions you have to ask yourself. You have to ask the soft questions first, and actually, people, I think, don't do it because the soft questions are hard and they take time. And so this framework I'm presenting is about these qualitative soft questions that are very easy. And as I said in the beginning, you can use this to evaluate or create simple asset tokens for real-world assets, stable tokens, whatever. But it is even more useful for creating more complex protocol tokens, especially if you're thinking of designing protocol tokens with various token types. So why are people saying DAOs are dead? Why is it so hard to create a resilient token system? And I think there are several reasons. First of all, the design of your token depends on the purpose of what you're trying to create. And is it a centralized or a decentralized system? Is it going to be capitalism on steroids or socialism on steroids? Do what you want, but be very clear about it, and your token design has to reflect your goal. And very often, the token designs do not reflect the goal, and this is when they fail. Another issue is that I saw many people over the years, we studied many token systems, and we spoke with many people, did some consulting. They want to go too fast in the beginning, and they do too many mental shortcuts. Okay, so they're like, oh, bonding curve. Don't understand the mathematics behind it, think it's a magical formula, and want to recreate it, maybe tweak it a little bit. Very often, they just take it, copy, paste it, but it may or may not make sense for what they're trying to create. So the copy-paste mentality, in my opinion, needs to be replaced with a more design thinking mentality that would help to create more resilient token systems. Another issue is that tokens can represent, as many of you know, many different rights. At the time, we're still in very early days of token adoption, and most tokens represent some kind of asset, some kind of property right. But tokens can represent so much more. They can represent voting rights, management rights, information rights, access rights. Information rights are a subclass of access rights. And we need to, A, understand the different types of rights the tokens we're designing represent, and very often, for example, voting rights are attached to property rights, to equity, and this is when things go wrong. Because protocols are being designed that are being promoted as decentralized and everyone can collaborate, but then it's attached to equity, and the power structures are totally off. 5% control everything. So when we design these systems, we need to understand the different types of right and make sure that we don't attach them one to each other. So the framework presented comes from 4 different perspectives. Obviously, technical engineering is very important, but these questions shouldn't come first. When you're designing a token system, you have to ask the non-technical questions first. The technical questions and the legal compliance questions are very important. You have to ask them, but the order of events should be reversed. The questions, the economic and the political or / ethical questions are more important if you want to create protocols where people keep contributing and consuming protocol services over time. Because if it doesn't make sense for them, they will just leave. And we've seen it with many, many protocols. First and foremost, one of the use cases I analyzed in the book was Steemit, a social media protocol that had over 1 million active users in 2017. It was a great thing, but it failed because of really bad protocol design. It didn't make sense for people to contribute to the system anymore or to consume system services because the rich were getting richer and reputation was being attached to equity, and that didn't make sense. The headline questions in this framework are like, first question, what is the purpose of what you want to create? We'll go into the details. What are the principles upon which you want to build what you want to create? And this is very important. Why are the principles important? Because we live in a world of trade-offs. Trade-offs between privacy and institutional accountability. And you need to know what your principles are when you make these trade-off decisions in your token design. Positioning obviously is important, but the functions. Once you know what you want to create, what is the purpose, and what are the principles, the question is what are the main functions of the system and what are the sub-functions? Then which stakeholders will participate in your protocol? What are their roles? And only then can you start asking yourself the question about what type of token do you need and how many token do you need, one token type or different types of token types. And then you look at the token design from an economic perspective, legal perspective, technical perspective, and political perspective. Why political? Because any system always has power structures. We can try to pretend that it doesn't, but it does. And the initial conditions matter, and how the initial conditions and the rights you attach to the tokens unfold over time, how rights are attached to the tokens, how the tokens are distributed initially and over time will determine the power structures. And nobody wants to be part of a system where 5% control everything because you don't have the guns. If you're a protocol designer, you don't have guns to keep the people. You don't have the IRS, you don't have the police or the army to keep the people in your system. If it doesn't work for them, if they can't make money, if they don't have any other benefits, they will leave. They will leave and play with another protocol. So you have to make sure that the power structures that will emerge won't derail the whole system. So it's not a magical formula, and it's not a fast thing to do. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. The only thing that I can say is take your time. Time is your friend. I know everyone is busy. I know investors are rushing. I know you have to pay your rent, and obviously time is always an issue. But the more time you take in the beginning to anticipate the issues that can emerge with power structures, etc., and with unexpected stakeholders that will emerge over time, how you will react when things happen that you didn't anticipate, what kind of governance mechanisms you have in place, the more time you will save later. So time is your friend. We'll rush through. We have 5 minutes. So obviously, it's like this whole questionnaire, set of questionnaires that's supposed to help you. We're not going to go through all the questions, but you download it, you have some sheets. When it comes to purpose, I would like to spend some time talking about this. Very often I see people, they're very unclear about their purpose, what they want to do, or they have multiple purposes. Try to focus on one purpose, especially if you're designing protocol tokens, because you're designing a protocol that is supposed to automatically align incentives of different stakeholders. And aligning incentives of people with different needs is already very, very difficult if you have one purpose. And if you have multiple purposes, this is when things get complex. So try to keep it simple. Do one purpose first, and then if you have a minimum viable economy, if you have a critical mass, you can add layers on top. Maybe, or maybe not, but keep it simple at least at first. Political principles, as I said, like the biggest questions here are regarding power structures. Anticipate power structures, they always emerge, and they're always the downfall of what we call DAOs. DAOs are dead, protocols, right? They always become the downfall because people didn't anticipate power structures that emerge as a result of the token design. And there is a lot we can learn from all the protocols that have failed. So I don't think, as I said, DAOs are over. We need to learn from the best practices and the worst practices. And if you're interested in my book, as I said, I analyzed some of the DAOs that have been there for a time. The other biggest trade-off is regarding privacy versus accountability. Obviously, blockchain networks, there is a lot of institutional accountability, a lot of data out there. Privacy is an issue, so be very clear about the system you want to create. Like, what are the privacy principles you want to uphold, and what are the privacy principles you have to uphold, because you have to be legally compliant, especially in jurisdictions like the European Union, where data protection laws are very high, but at the same time contradict blockchain networks, so it's difficult. Positioning, this is not crypto related. Obviously, any system you create, you have to see, is there any other system out there that already does the same thing? Functions. This is where many projects fail also, because not thinking in functions. For developers, it's easier. For non-developers, sometimes it's not that easy. Like what is the main function, and what are the sub-functions, and who is going to fulfill which function in your system? But first, you need to list the main function, the sub-functions, the priority of the functions, how are they related to each other, who should fulfill each function, how do you incentivize function fulfillment by different types of stakeholders, vault owners, traders, etc. And are the functions automated or non-automated or semi-automated? Because not everything can be automated, and we need to acknowledge this too. And then you identify the stakeholders. And here it is very important to not only identify them, but group them, internal versus external. Like the people, the stakeholders close to your system and at the fringes of your system. Producers of infrastructure services, protocol infrastructure services, consumers. Human versus automated. Humans have to be incentivized in a different way than bots, because they make mental shortcuts. and bots make less mental shortcuts, but they have the bias. So, but understanding the differences, private versus institutional, is also an important difference. And then you can list all these stakeholders, attach a role, a function, understand what their rights and permissions are, and how do you incentivize them, and how do you disincentivize them? What are their rights and what are their obligations? Only then do you move on to asking yourself, okay, for this, what do I need to do? Do I need one type of token? Do I need several types of tokens? And then you go on designing these tokens from different perspectives. And this whole questionnaire is iterative, so obviously you cannot fill this out in an afternoon or in an hour. You start filling it out, you circle back to it. It's not necessarily linear. So identifying rights, like, is it a fungible token? Then supply is an issue, and stability could be an issue. Is it a non-fungible token? Then I need to think about pricing strategies, etc. Transferability is an issue. What's the minting event? What's the burning event? Is it convertible? Is it not convertible? These are economic, legal questions that you have to ask yourself. In the legal design, very often it's about compliance. We're not going to go into these details, but you have to be able to more or less answer these questions for yourself. The technical design, obviously, is very, very important. The mistake that I see many times is that people ask the technical questions first, but you have to ask what you want to do and whether it's legally compliant first. And then obviously the question of which infrastructure you use, how privacy preserving is it, does it have the necessary scalability, interoperability, which token standards do you use? Very important, not the first question. Always keep in mind the power structures, and I know I've been repeating it a few times. Power structures always exist, always unfold. Acknowledge them, anticipate them, work with them, or it's your downfall. And here we have different types of powers, what policy-making powers, who has policy-making powers, are they well distributed, who has voting powers, who has information powers, who has market powers, and which market powers, mediation powers, and account for the fact that when you're designing a token system, there will be stakeholders you don't think of, but will be part of the system later, and then they influence this whole thing. Yeah, so if you want to create capitalism on steroids, be my guest, but don't sell it as socialism, right? This is when you lose your users. You want to create socialism, then have the adequate token design where the people who use your system can actually influence the policy making of your system. Or don't sell it as socialism, and I call it socialism, aka democracy, aka decentralization. It's not decentralized when the people using it cannot influence the policy making. Because there are all these different tokens. So be very clear, do what you want, but also understand that if you promise something you don't deliver, nobody will play with your system, and playing alone is not fun. All right, so team composition needs to reflect what you're trying to do. If you want to learn more, the theory is in the book. You can download the tool from Token Kitchen, and if we have questions, time for questions. We don't have time for questions, but I will be out there, so approach me if you have some. Thank you for your attention.